Welcome to Rattling the Cage. You can find us on social media at Rattling Cage Pod. My name is Caroline Deason, and my guest today is my very good friend Joel Szaefer. The reason that I asked Joel to be on this episode is because I had already chosen to do this episode's movie, Face Off, and he mentioned out of the blue that Face Off is one of his favorite movies, and I thought, well, I'm going to break with tradition of going strong with 2 episodes with no guests and invite Joel to be on the podcast. So Joel, tell me about Face Off as, you know, a childhood movie of yours. That's what you said, right? That it's a movie that you loved when you were a kid?
Loved is maybe the incorrect term.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Did
you hate this movie and now I've made you watch it again to be on the podcast?
So there are parts of it that I love and there are parts of it that I hate. Rewatching it as an adult, I would say it is one of the best movies on the planet.
Oh, okay. Amazing.
But so it came out in, I think it was 97. So I would have been about 9 when it came out. And Caroline, everything I could remember about this movie from my childhood is tongue related.
Okay. So another thing that Joel said when he was talking about this movie is that he really liked it. I thought he said that. And then he said, except for that one scene. And he wouldn't tell me what the one scene is. And I actually still don't know what the one scene is, having just watched the movie. But I wanted to guess that it was something to do with a tongue. Am I right about that?
You are very right.
Okay. All right. Okay, so tell me more about your childhood memories of this movie and maybe how they changed.
Reflecting on it when I watched it as a child, I remembered obviously the main premise of it, and I remembered that John Travolta's character was like some sort of police officer. And then I remembered that Nicolas Cage was, just a villain. I didn't comprehend what type of villain, but obviously just a villain.
Does it matter, really?
No, it really doesn't matter. And this movie goes through what I would describe as a lot of genres. So the type of villain that he is, it's like different from scene to scene. But what the things I vividly remember are the scene when he asks the what I would call flight attendant, who is an undercover FBI agent, if she would be grateful if he let her suck his tongue. Which is horrifying. That entire exchange horrifies me. It horrified me then. You were lucky. I watched the whole scene without fast forwarding it this time, and it horrified me now. The other scene that I remember vividly is when Nick Cage, as John Travolta, licks John Travolta's daughter's face.
Young high school daughter.
That's
yes.
right.
So is that the scene? Is that the one that where you were like, that one scene?
No, the tongue sucking scene. It's like
okay, but then you lied to me because I said when you said that one scene and I was like, was it the peach scene? And you said no, so you lied.
Well, listen, I didn't want to give away all my secrets.
Yeah, you didn't want to spoil it for me. That's fine.
They're just unsettling.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about first, is that I didn't know anything about this movie other than what I've seen kind of as these Nick Cage memes where he is headbanging dressed as a priest to the choir singing the Messiah, and when he's like screaming in that choir up in the air and things like that, and just looking very ridiculous. This idea of Nick Cage that the internet has gone and run with, that the whole kind of premise to my podcast is that I'm more familiar with the internet Nick Cage than the actual movie Nick Cage, and every time I watch a Nick Cage film, I'm kind of surprised how good he actually is, because these memes make him look ridiculous and make it look like his whole shtick is to be ridiculous. But the cool thing about this movie is that he is ridiculous, his character is ridiculous, and then John Travolta gets to play him as being ridiculous. So it's almost like John Travolta, the actor, gets to play Nicolas Cage, the actor, playing this character. I texted you. One of the things we always say is save it for the podcast. So I tried to really not live text you as I was watching it. But one of the things I said to you is that this seems like it would have been a really fun role for John Travolta to play, because he got to be the stereotypical Nick Cage.
Yeah, I think it probably would have been fun for both of them, because Nick Cage also kind of had to, I'm not going to say tone it down, because obviously some of the like traits of his character came through when he was playing John Travolta's character, but it was very fascinating. One of the things that I tried, again, I tried not to text you at all during watching this, But one of the things that like struck me right away was like the first 15 minutes of that movie feels like the ending of a normal movie.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it really gets right to
It's
the
like
action really
it's a
quick.
climax at the start.
Yep.
One of the things I was going to message you is I felt like I had whiplash because it was like very quickly changing tones and like almost felt like it was changing genres of movies as it went.
Definitely. I was thinking the whole time that wow, they don't make them like this anymore. This kind of like, that's like that quintessential kind of 90s action movie that didn't really need to have a lot of lead up or character development or anything. The character development kind of comes with all the other action. One of the things that I didn't know about this movie, I knew that like it was called Face Off, and I knew that probably they switched faces, but I didn't realize that it was kind of so, they had this sci-fi type of, this is top secret operation that, only these doctors know about, and only these 3 people in the world will know about it, and they all die at the same time. So isn't that convenient for the plot? And then that they changed his hair. They had a surgeon cutting his hair on the operation table, which I thought was a nice touch. And they also gave him chest plugs, apparently, and abdominal something or other to take care of his love handles.
Abdominoplasty.
Right, abdominoplasty. I didn't realize to what extent this movie was actually kind of silly sci-fi when nothing else that's going on. It's not as if it's like this is in the near future or anything like that. Like it's all supposed to be happening. We're supposed to suspend our disbelief that this actual technology is, lurking in the FBI special hospital in DC. And at the end of the movie, the wife, Eve, says that, they're flying the best doctors from DC to come and reverse the operation. I thought that was really funny. I was like, oh yes, DC, well known for having just the best doctors in the world that will perform this made up operation that nobody else knew.
They spend a few like a few minutes, and only a few minutes, building up like how state of the art and but also like top secret this procedure is. And then I just love how at the end they're like, but these doctors who literally knew nothing about it, they'll reverse it just fine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it'll be seamless. And even though John Travolta, his character, I guess it's Castor, but it's also Sean. He cuts up his face to just ruin the goods.
Yeah,
like, just exactly. Be like, I know I'm going to die, but I'm going to give you some big scars before I leave.
Neither of us gets this pretty face anymore.
That's right. I was reading, too, that when John Travolta's character, when Sean was saying things like this ridiculous chin and stuff like that, making fun of his appearance, that was all ad-lib. Did you know that?
No, I didn't, but I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, it was very... I love when actors can make fun of themselves that way. I'm a huge John Travolta fan from childhood. Like, a lot of my favorite movies as a kid had John Travolta in them. Not this, because I don't actually think this is a kid's movie. I think you just had a very strange...
Well, my shift worker parents would beg to differ.
I was the oldest of all of my, not only my own nuclear family, but all my cousins too. So, like, I never had any older siblings showing me taboo movies. Is that how you saw it, do you think, or was it just on TV or something?
Not to rat out my parents, but I'm pretty sure I watched it with them.
Okay, yeah, never mind. Okay, well, maybe they could, like, put it in context, and sometimes when a man is excited by a stranger on a plane, he wants the woman to suck on his tongue.
That's right.
Joel, that's fine, that's normal.
If you want to succeed, Joel, as a flight attendant when you're older, or in the FBI, or some combination of those two roles.
Speaking of just the FBI in general, the movie opens with child death, which, always a way to get them in their seats. But the way that it works is that this terrorist, this Castor Pollux, who, by the way, Castor Troy, who's named after Castor and Pollux. His brother is named Pollux. Do you know who Castor and Pollux are?
No idea.
So Castor and Pollux were demigods, and that's what the zodiac sign Gemini is. Castor and Pollux.
Oh,
so they
neat.
were twin demigods. Yeah. So the fact that their last name is Troy as well is, anyway, it's just I was hoping the movie would kind of explain how they got this name. I don't know if their parents named them this, like their last name was Troy, so they wanted to have some sort of kind of classical bent to it. But one of the interesting parts, one of the reasons that they might have been named that is because when Castor died, Pollux begged Zeus to bring him back to life. And so that's kind of what happens in this movie, where Pollux is unaware that Castor is dead for all intents and purposes. He's being kept alive just so they can use his face. And so he, demands that he's only going to speak to his brother. And so the FBI says, okay, well, we'll use your brother's corpse as a bargaining chip by using his face. But then lo and behold, he comes back to life. If you don't know the premise to Face Off, if you're listening to this without having watched the movie, that's the plot. But the reason that this is all happening is because Castor, this is Nick Cage's character, for some of the movie, that's also confusing. Nick Cage's character, Castor, is a terrorist. And as Joel said, it's kind of ambiguous what type of terrorism he's doing or who he's working for. We see later this kind of really cool bad guy lair that is just, it seems like they're just in it for the money and the thrill of the game, but they're not, any sort of organized terrorist organization.
It's also very 90s.
Oh, it's so 90s. Yeah, we'll get back to that. But anyway, so the movie opens 6 years before the events of the movie actually take place, where John Travolta's character, Sean Archer, and his 5-year-old son are with a whole bunch of other people on a carousel. Nick Cage, Castor Troy, has a sniper trained on him. Doesn't shoot to kill, doesn't hit him in the head, shoots him in the chest when he's holding his son. The bullet exit wounds through his chest and kills his son. So I've been watching a lot of Better Call Saul, and there's a lot of sniping that goes on in that show. And that's a ridiculous opening to a movie. Like, first of all, this man is clearly very evil if he was going to go to a carousel full of a bunch of other innocent people, namely children, and shoot someone. But then he didn't even shoot to kill. He definitely could have shot Archer in the head, but he doesn't. So did I miss something? Like, is this just a cat and mouse game? It's always been about just egging this guy on, and he always wanted to kill his son, do you think, and make it kind of look like an accident?
Yeah, I mean, it's so even if you remember where the scar was on his body, it wasn't. I don't even think it was also even near his heart, because I thought, well, maybe he's trying to hit him in the heart.
Right.
But he looked almost a little bit surprised that it was the son and not Archer that died.
Right. That's what I thought too. And I thought, well, but you shot him not to kill, and you shot him while he was holding his son. So what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And in fact, later on when he's talking about the scar, this is Sean and his wife, he's talking about the scar, and he wishes it was a couple inches over, because then it would have not killed his son. His wife said, but then it would have killed you. So as you said, it would have gone through his heart. So it did kind of seem to me like he was just egging this guy on and just being, and that's how we know he's really evil, other than the fact that he impersonates a priest, gropes a choir member who also looked underage. That whole thing was very creepy as well.
Yeah.
So then his life, Archer's life, this is John Travolta's character, is dedicated to getting revenge on the man who killed his son. And that's good because he's an FBI guy. The movie then has this incredible scene. I went and looked up what the budget for this movie is, because it starts with a chase of a plane where cars are chasing a plane down a runway, and there's a huge big fight out in a airplane hangar, and it ends with a speedboat chase. So it's really covering, every possible mode of transportation, except for train, I guess. We didn't get a cool train.
Yeah, there should be a sequel.
Actually, did you hear that they're rebooting it?
I don't know how I feel about that. It's like trying to wear somebody else's face.
One of the things that I found really disturbing was, and this was probably supposed to lend more, to make us more turned off about Castor Troy, but his brother is gross.
Everything about that brother is just so unsettling.
I did make a note here, though, that when they strike a deal for him to be released, because at this point, it's the bad guy who is taking over the body of the FBI agent who can strike that deal. He's in a room where he's eating whatever he wants. And did you notice what he's eating, Joel?
I didn't see what he was eating. All I heard was him mention something about tiramisu.
So he's singing a song about tiramisu. Now, tiramisu is your favorite dessert. And so I made a note in my phone saying, because of this movie?
Or maybe I'm equally unsettling as a person.
Exactly. So I want to confront you about how this movie has shaped your life since you saw it at the tender age of 9. So you remember the licking, and I'm going to contend that you also remember the tiramisu singing in that very weirdo scene.
You've unlocked the secrets of my psyche. It's tiramisu and tongues, oddly enough.
In The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is a movie that I did a couple episodes ago. Do you know about this movie, Joel? Have you heard about?
No, I haven't.
So The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is a Nick Cage movie that came out very recently, a few months ago, where Nick Cage plays himself. And so he meets a superfan, a Nicolas Cage superfan, and hijinks ensue. They have a conversation about their top 3 favorite movies. And the superfan names The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Paddington 2, and Face Off. And when he names Face Off as his favorite movie to Nicolas Cage, Nick Cage says, "Oh yeah, John Woo is I think he says he's a master." I'm all for. I really love action movies, and I really love silly action movies. But I really wish, watching this, all I could think about is how much more fun I think I would have had if I was 9, like you, when you watched it, or maybe a little bit older, because I found it to be so over the top with a lot of things. So you mentioned earlier that you had memories of this as a child, and now you've watched it again and you think it's one of the best movies. So can you tell me more about that, how seeing it through adult eyes?
I will say that when I watched it, like, remembering it when I was a kid, nothing in the movie, like, obviously the scenes that disturbed me, but nothing out of the like movie seemed like over the top or out of the ordinary.
Right.
Like, everything about it's just so quintessentially 90s. Like, even every little boy has that, like, weird quintessential 90s boy haircut. It's like the two boys have almost identical haircuts, just one's let grown a little bit longer. When I was watching it this time, just like I said, I think I said earlier that I had like whiplash from the like shifts in tone of the movie. And these actors, I said everyone deserves an Academy Award because they just forge ahead like everything about this is normal. So the sniping scene right off the bat with a very, very thirsty sniper, where I don't know if you saw that, but it zoomed in.
Oh, yes.
It zoomed in several times on Nick Cage drinking from a straw. And then, so then, you get the pathos right off the bat. And then it's immediately like, well, here's a giant fight at an airfield where there's a plane crash and all kinds of pyrotechnics. And then it like immediately jumps into, we're going to try this like brand new space age technology for 1997 at this top secret facility, which I also love how John Travolta takes, I don't know, 6 seconds to decide to do it.
And he's like very against it for one of those seconds and then changes.
He's like, what, you expect me to do this? All right, I'll do it. and then it's like, then it's like a prison movie, but like a kind of high-tech prison movie. And then there's a prison escape portion, and then it's like 90s bad guy lair, which I'm trying to figure out what other 90s, like it almost reminds me of the Mario Brothers movie.
Did you know, so one of the bits of trivia about this movie is that those magnetic boots that they use in the prison were used in the Mario Brothers movie as well. Not as magnetic boots, but just as like boots that I think it was that the Goombas wore.
Okay, so my brain is drawing this connection.
I was reminded of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, one of my favorite movies from 1990. There's this like boys' paradise, underground boys' paradise, where it's there's like skate parks and a big arcade and stuff like that. So this is like the grown-up version. This hideout is like the grown-up version of that. Yeah, very 90s though.
So there was so much going on in this movie, Caroline, that at one point I pressed pause and I was like, we must be reaching the end. I still had over an hour left of this movie.
Yep, same. At that point, I looked up how long it was because I was like, there's no way. Something's wrong with my player here.
Like, over 2 hours. That's a long time for a 9-year-old.
Yes, it is a long time for a 9-year-old. Especially, do you know if you watched it with commercials, or was this something that your parents rented and sat you down?
No, it wasn't.
Was this an incidental movie?
No, it wasn't spoiled by commercials. It was unfiltered for my fresh 9-year-old eyes.
I was wondering too if that means it was censored, but it wasn't. If you watched it, if you guys rented the VHS, this is a family movie around the hearth that night.
That's right.
The Gina Gershon is one of my. I love her. She's gorgeous. So she plays Sasha, the mother of Nick Cage's character's son, who never finds out that he has a son. Apparently, this boy is just living in this bad guy holdout. But she's in a relationship with another guy. Anyway, it's confusing, but it
Okay,
doesn't matter.
so is she in a relationship with that bald guy, or is that bald guy her
Or is
brother?
it her brother?
Because I
Yes,
was
okay.
like, they kissed very, what I thought was romantically, and then she talks
Yes.
about her brother dying, and I'm like, surely those are two different people, ma'am.
Okay, so I also was like, I must have missed something, and I'll get Joel to verify. But yes, I also was confused about who's in a relationship with whom, and maybe there's just maybe everybody's just a really friendly kisser in this movie, or maybe at least that group, the group of terrorist criminals are really friendly kissers, and maybe Castor just thinks that you lick people on the faces, and that's like because he does it to himself as well. Did you notice
Oh,
that?
yes.
So when John Travolta as Sean, but well, pretending to be this is hard to talk about. Pretending to be Sean, but he is Castor. He said he's been face-offed. Meets his face. Anyway, he licks himself because he says that he's so handsome. So that's that. If you haven't seen the movie, that sentence makes absolutely no sense. So don't like it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a lot of face licking.
Like, under threat of physical harm, I don't think I could adequately summarize this movie.
I thought you were going to say under threat of physical harm. I don't think I could lick someone's face.
I probably also couldn't do that.
It is funny in that scene where John Travolta is supposed to lick Nick Cage. There's palpable hesitation. Like, it's not as easy for him to do that as it is to lick the child's face near the end, which is not great. Speaking of the ending, so there's the big face off. Name of the movie comes in a church. A very Catholic church. So this is the second...
that they let doves into all the time.
Right, exactly. Well, no, Joel, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in a Catholic church. This is embarrassing, but there are doves all the time. It's also on the beach. Like, it's on Venice Beach and open to the beach. People can walk out of the ocean into the church.
Take a dove, walk back into the ocean.
Exactly. I don't know what the symbolism is here, exactly. Goodness, there's a lot of it. There's, close-ups on the crucifix, and John Travolta's character comes in and does a crucifix position in a really flamboyant way. I think that was around the time when I texted you to say I think this must have been really fun for John Travolta, because it's really neat seeing him impersonate Nick Cage acting. And that's kind of this like double remove where how much of this is someone impersonating Nicolas Cage as they think he is as a person, and how much do they think, like, how much is it him impersonating this character?
Well, it's funny that you should mention, Travolta playing, like, his idea of Nick Cage almost, because at one point Nick Cage also has to play his idea of Nick Cage when he's in the prison trying to prove to his brother that he's his brother.
Yes. Oh, yes. Explain. Speak more on that.
So this is when Sean is basically first becomes Castor, and he goes to the prison where Castor's brother is held, and it's a prison movie, so obviously at this point, a fight breaks out, and at one point, Sean as Castor is basically getting beat up. And he looks over at his brother, and his brother looks like kind of surprised because this is a guy who sort of controls everyone around him. Nick Cage makes eye contact. Well, Nick Cage as Sean as Castor makes eye contact with him,
right.
And then goes realizes that his brother's gonna see through the ruse, and goes super wide-eyed as though he's coked out, and just starts going crazy about this fight. And I was like, you can see it must be difficult to have to play a character who is a more subdued version of yourself than trying to play yourself.
I think that Nick Cage is a fantastic actor. And you said that everyone here deserves an Academy Award, so you must agree. But yes. Having seen this movie now, I don't think that this is anything but a testament to his not only his acting prowess, but also his canny ability to understand what he brings to the table. And, you know, he's never pretended that what works, what sells, isn't what he's doing, right? Like he wants to make sure that he's giving the people what they want. He's always been a very canny businessman, I guess, in that way. He knows what to bring to the table.
I would say if you could only ever watch one Nick Cage movie to get like an idea of how good he is at acting, this is probably one of the better choices.
A couple of movie journalists, I guess, have named something called the Holy Trinity of Nick Cage movies, and those ones are Face Off, Con Air, and The Rock.
Oh,
those are
yes.
the three that people. So I haven't seen The Rock. Have you seen The Rock?
Oh yes, I watched it when I was a kid.
So you have this wonderful Nick Cage background, like this childhood Nick Cage.
Oh,
background
I'm well steeped.
Sorely lacking. I think I'd like to talk about the ending.
Okay.
Because that was something else that I had to text you about because I laughed out loud at this ending. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So, okay, I find a lot of the scenes funny. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Tell me more.
So, okay, one of the things that I think is that I guess is supposed to be poignant, but I always thought was ridiculous, is that weird like hand wipe that everyone in that family does.
Okay, thank you, because I also thought this, like, nobody ever explains it.
No.
It's not like cute.
And John Travolta
you know what I mean?
does it to his wife when she's crying, and I was like, is he just ineffectively wiping her tears?
Is it that you do a sad face, you do that face wipe, and then it's supposed to be a happy face? Is that what it is? It's like, I'm cheering you up?
I thought it was sign language for something.
Have you ever, like, played a game with a kid where you hide your face and you move your hands and you're happy, you hide your face and you move your hands and you're mad, you hide your face? Yeah, I feel like that's what it is, but you're doing it to someone else where it's like, oh, you're sad, cheer up, I'll change your face, but like in the weirdest way possible with that weird fingertip move down.
Change your
like,
face.
Face off.
Take this sad face right on off.
And there's that scene where he tells the bad guy, I want to take his face off, and it's like the most prolonged. It's like 3 whole minutes of the man saying face off,
and then he does
like
a
moving
big
hand.
gesture. That is when I watched that moment, Caroline. That is when I texted you saying everyone in this movie deserves an Academy Award.
Okay, yeah, you were right. Did you also laugh at that though? Is that another funny part for you? Okay, good. Yeah. There's a fine line between laughing and eye rolling for me, and that's kind of where I'm like, oh, they don't make movies like this anymore. Like this, it's just that 90s. Like, did they think it was going to be as funny as it is? Was it funny in the 90s? Am I, what? Do you remember laughing at this movie as a kid?
No.
Badass?
This was all deadly serious.
All deadly serious and all badass. Yeah, exactly. So at the end of the movie, John Travolta, his character, who is now Sean Archer again, his face has been on now.
No visible scarring, thankfully.
No visible scarring, no downtime. It's a
day procedure.
Yeah, that's right, outpatient. He arrives at home, and his wife opens the door with his wife and daughter opens the door, and they're happy to see him. And then he says that he has a question for them, and he reveals a boy. He reveals the child that his nemesis had with Gina Gershon's character, who reminds him very much of his own dead son, because they are meant to look similar. As you said, they have that same 90s haircut, 90s boy haircut. He says, I want to know, can he stay here, basically? Can he needs someplace to live. There's no discussion about this. There's no discussion about, are we adopting this? Like, what's happening here? The daughter goes up to him and makes instant friends. They run off and start playing. And the wife, who is in tears about seeing her husband, says, okay. And then they embrace and the movie's over. So he says, hey, I found this strange boy. I won't explain to you how I know this boy or anything, but doesn't he look like our dead boy? Because that's what's really happening here, is he's found a replacement for his dead son. And nobody talks about this. Why would the wife be okay with this? How unbelievably creepy is this? It's a face off by itself. We've taken this boy's face looks like our dead boy's face, so now he will be the new dead boy who is now alive boy.
The best part, though, is the sister, they don't go run off to play together. She says, let me show you to your room. Like, she's like,
Oh!
come, let me put you in my dead brother's room.
Yes! Oh, that's true. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. No, it's not
It's
like, hey, let's get to know each other while the parents discuss this. It's like, no, you are the new brother.
Yeah, it's not at all ambiguous that he's going to be the replacement brother.
True. Oh, and his parents are dead, and nobody's ever even explained to him. And he met his dad, who wasn't his dad, for 25 seconds, who then started screaming his, like, some other name.
Mother is possibly sleeping with his uncle because that's inexplicable.
This is modern Shakespeare.
That's right.
Is there anything else you want to touch on?
If I can give one piece of advice to people listening, it's that this is one of the best movies on the planet, and so you owe it to yourself to watch it.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, and thank you for listening.